I've never been this excited to kill a Jake. We've been hunting so hard for the last 6 days. We've been working our butts off. And we just cashed in, so we saw about 17 birds this evening. And with some light calling, convinced one to come by, so we're gonna go over here and get a good look at it in a minute. We're gonna range it, see how far. I think it was about a 65-yard shot, which makes me really happy that I did some patterning of the gun right before the trip. So let's go get this bird and we'll show it to you. So like I said earlier, yes, this is a Jake, but me and the boys here, we've been working really hard for 6 solid days. Been chasing birds left and right. We saw 17 of them tonight, several longbeards. They all went and they roosted across the way over there. And actually just before they went to roost, I was able to do some soft calling and got 2 Jakes to come by. And this one here stopped at 55 yards. We already glassed it. At 55 yards, I pinched and he did the old turkey dance. So like I said, it's a Jake, and a lot of people might frown on shooting a Jake, but a measure of success outdoors, it's not about the trophy of the deer or turkey, whatever you're going after, but it's what you measure the success to be. And the time I've got to spend with my friends, chasing these birds, watching God's creation. We saw 17 birds, a lot of strutters tonight. This is a definite success. I'm very proud of it. So it's the day after the harvest, and as you could tell, last night we were pretty excited about this bird, and we kept calling it a Jake. And after further investigation, once we got back to some better light and kind of calmed down a little bit, we realized that we didn't have a Jake. Instead, we had a bearded hen. A couple of the key things that we noticed were, one, she had no spurs. The other thing was the head, no wattle. And then the key deciding factor here was when you get to the breast feathers. On a Jake or a mature bird, they're going to be all black. And as you can see on this, they're brown and then have a much lighter tip to them. That's a key indicator that this is actually a hen. But check this out. The beard on this is about a 9-inch beard when you take it all the way down to the end. So for me, this was a real trophy to be able to harvest a bearded hen. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take the time and we're going to show you how to take the beard off so you can preserve it and make your own trophy. And then we're going to take the fan off, and then we're actually going to breast it so that we can have some table fare later on. So to remove the beard, what we're going to do first, and this first step is really just so that you can see it a little easier on camera, is I'm going to take and pluck some of the feathers away here close to the base of the beard. And this is, like I said, only needed for demonstration purposes, so it's a little bit easier to see. Okay, so as you can see, I'm pulling up on the beard, and you can see the skin down here. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our knife, a really nice sharp, a fillet knife works well, and we're going to cut it a little bit deeper because these hair follicles will actually go a little bit deeper into the skin. So we're going to cut it low, and then when we get home, we'll be able to salt it, and as it's cured, then we can trim back any extra skin or any meat that may have gotten into it. So as you can see, it's really just skin. There's barely any meat in there, but we'll salt this whole thing. You can put it in salt from about that point down, and then it'll cure this so that you don't get any odor or anything later on. And then I'll trim a little bit of this extra meat off and skin off, and then we'll be able to have a nice little trophy at the house. Now we're going to go ahead and remove the fan. So a couple key pointers here is, one, you're better off when you're taking the fan off to leave more skin and more material behind than what you expect to use. Reason being is once you've made your cut, it's done. So leave a little bit extra and you can always come back and trim that off later after you've salted it. So step one is pull the fan up and identify there's 2 knots down here where the fan comes into the back of the bird. You're going to want to identify that, and you'll feel those knots. And then you'll want to make your cut at the bottom of the first knot here, stay north of the rear vent, and stay underneath the skin. And then you'll proceed up the back and go ahead and take some extra feathers with you, skinning down the back, around, and back to the front. That's then going to give you the entire fan along with some extra feathers so that you can make your trophy when you get to the house. I've identified the 2 knots. And be very careful not to cut yourself, because in some of this you're running a little blind. There you go. Now we've got the feathers for the fan, along with some extra feathers. That way we can always trim this away. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of meat and stuff right in here. But once we've salted it, we'll be able to get all that trimmed up nice and clean so there's no odor at the house. So one of the things that you talk to a lot of people and they're talking about, oh, you need to pluck the turkey, and that is a lot of extra messy work. I say you just kind of go at it. If you've ever cleaned a duck or a dove, just come up towards the breast, and especially since we've already cut the beard off, you can just apply pressure and start to separate. Maybe do one little cut, and once you get that cut started, as you can see there, you can just continue to rip it with your hands. Go ahead and open it up, and plus, by not plucking it, you don't have a ton of feathers flying all over the place, which just make it extra messy. Just pull that, go ahead and pull that skin down as far as you can, so you can see the entire breast. What we're going to do is we're going to take the knife and we're going to walk it down the breastbone, around, and then get as deep as we can down towards the feathers. That way we can get as much meat as possible. As you can tell, I'm turning the knife at about a 20-degree angle back towards the breastbone. That way we don't waste any meat. Just be cautious that you don't cut too deep, because their gut cavity, everything's going to be right there, and you don't want to puncture that and get that all over the nice clean breast meat. There you go. So you got one nice breast. So once we get this breast out, what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and any feathers that we have that have stuck to it, we'll go ahead and get those off. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put it in a nice hefty sack. And then when you get to the house, you can go ahead, you can marinate it in some buttermilk, You can trim any fat off if there is any fat. You can, one additional thing I would do is check for any blood spots. Like for instance, you have a blood spot here. So you want to feel it really good to make sure there's no BBs in there from your shot. Because the last thing you want to do is have a real nice time on a turkey hunt and then have a dentist appointment followed up because you didn't clean the shot out of the bird's breast. So again, be cautious when you get down here towards the front so that you don't puncture the gut cavity. There we go. So the second breast is off. Nice white meat. And if you're used to eating wild game, in my opinion, the wild turkey is probably one of the closest resemblance to store-bought food that you're going to find. Like many other species, venison and duck and stuff, they will often have some additional gaminess to them. But if you're looking for something to share with people to introduce them to eating wild game, I would highly recommend a turkey because it is the closest to actual grocery store meat that you're going to find.